Foreign memory, case 23. Subject claims he was taken to ancient Egypt.
They lied to us! The Egyptians were in contact with aliens!
Foreign memory, case 23. A man claims he saw Egyptians communicating with aliens.
You won't believe what happened to me. Even now, I can't explain it. And maybe I never will. I thought I was just another man living an ordinary life, until the day I woke up under a sky that didn't belong to this time. My life before that day was nothing special. A rented room with water stains on the ceiling, the sound of buses outside, and a paycheck that disappeared the moment it arrived. I worked every job I could find: delivery driver, night cleaner, warehouse hand. Each morning felt heavier than the one before. I kept telling myself that one day I'd escape it, but deep down, I knew I was stuck. Then Daniel called. He was one of those people who always believed things would somehow work out, even when they never did. He said, "I found something. Real money. No risk. Just a test. A medical thing." I laughed, but he kept talking. "They said it's about new scanning tech, like an advanced MRI. We go in, sit for an hour, get paid." At that point, I didn't care what it was. I just needed to survive another month. The next day, we arrived at a building on the edge of the city. Glass walls, no name, no reception desk. A voice from an intercom said, "Participants, please proceed." Inside, everything smelled like ozone and disinfectant. The halls were white, perfectly silent, like the world outside didn't exist. A woman in a lab coat gave us wristbands with numbers. No names. She said, "You'll be testing a new magnetic resonance device. There will be light and vibration. Nothing to worry about." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. We were led into separate rooms. In mine, the air was cold. A metallic ring hung above a padded table, connected to cables running into the wall. I asked, "How long will this take?" She replied, "It'll feel instantaneous." When I lay down, I could hear Daniel in the next room joking with the staff. Then a voice came through the speaker. "Close your eyes." I felt a vibration through the table. Faint at first, then stronger, almost rhythmic. White light filled the room. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. The sound grew sharper, like hundreds of wires tightening all at once. And then, silence. For a second, I thought I was dead. But then the smell hit me. Not sterile air, but dust and heat. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above wasn't white anymore. It was stone, cracked, heavy, covered in carvings. The air shimmered with sunlight, golden and dry. I stood up, dizzy. Daniel was beside me, eyes wide, mouth open. The floor wasn't metal, it was sand. The room around us looked like the inside of a temple. Pillars with strange faces, smoke rising from bowls of burning oil. And there were people, men in linen robes, skin bronzed by the sun, staring at us in horror. One dropped his torch, another fell to his knees and started chanting. Daniel whispered, "Where the hell are we?" A tall man in gold approached, carrying a staff shaped like a serpent. He spoke, but the words didn't make sense. Yet somehow I understood their meaning. He said, "The messengers have returned." I turned to Daniel, but he was frozen, staring at the far wall. There, half buried in sand, was something impossible. A metallic surface gleaming under the torchlight, marked with symbols that glowed faint blue. It wasn't stone. It wasn't human. We didn't move. The man in gold touched my shoulder and said something else. A group of guards appeared and led us deeper into the temple, down a narrow passage where the air grew cooler, the walls smoother. And then I saw it. A shape, huge, metallic, and silent, resting beneath the earth like a buried ship. Light pulsed along its surface, steady and mechanical, like a sleeping heart. Daniel whispered, "Is that a spacecraft?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to believe this was some elaborate hallucination. But the ground trembled, and the air filled with a low hum, a sound that felt alive, but not human. The guards bowed. The man in gold lowered his head, and from the darkness above, a thin beam of light descended, scanning the sand between us. Daniel took a step back. "This isn't real," he said. But it was. And in that moment, I knew. We weren't in the present anymore. We were in the past. And the gods of Egypt were not gods at all. The air inside the temple was thick with smoke and whispers. Some of the men bowed, others ran. Daniel and I stood frozen, not knowing whether to move or breathe. Everything felt wrong. The temperature, the smell, even the gravity. It was as if the world itself had been replaced. 2 guards seized us by the arms and dragged us through a long corridor lined with torches. The walls were carved with endless figures, men kneeling before towering shapes that looked nothing like humans. At the far end stood a massive bronze door engraved with constellations. As it opened, the air changed, colder, heavier, filled with a faint mechanical hum. Inside, the ceiling was covered in mirrors and polished metal plates. And in the center, surrounded by priests, stood the object I had glimpsed before. A ship, half buried in stone, its hull scorched and blackened, covered in symbols that pulsed with pale blue light. It was huge, stretching beyond the shadows, humming softly like an engine at rest. The high priest raised his staff, his voice echoed, "Behold the chariot of the sky ones." I didn't understand his language, but somehow the meaning slipped directly into my head. My pulse quickened. Daniel whispered, "That's not a chariot, it's a machine." One of the priests touched the ship's surface, and part of the metal shifted. Not melted, not alive, but responsive, like liquid steel adjusting to a command. From within came a deep sound, a resonance that made my chest vibrate. Then the light on the hull expanded into lines and circles, forming a doorway. They forced us forward. We tried to resist, but the guards pushed us closer until we stood inches from the glowing surface. The heat coming off it felt unreal, not like fire, more like energy radiating through the air. When we stepped inside, everything changed. It wasn't bright or dark, just endless shades of metallic gray. Panels curved into each other, smooth as mirrors, reflecting us again and again until I couldn't tell which image was real. No dust, no smell of age, only silence. And that constant hum, mechanical and alive at once. In the center of the chamber floated a structure shaped like a sphere, suspended by nothing. It rotated slowly, projecting thin beams of blue light across the walls. Each beam ended in a hovering image. Maps, diagrams, moving constellations. Daniel stared at it, whispering, "This is a command center. They had technology thousands of years ago." A low tone filled the room. The light around us dimmed. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Tall shapes emerging from the far side of the ship. 3 beings stepped forward. They were slender, elongated, wearing metallic suits that reflected the flicker of the beams. Their faces were smooth, pale, featureless except for 2 black eyes that caught the light like glass. They stopped a few meters away, simply watching us. My mind flooded with noise. Fragments of language, memory, sound. Not voices, but impressions. A single phrase rose above the rest, not spoken aloud but written inside my thoughts. "You are out of place in the circle of time." I tried to speak, but my voice failed. Daniel whispered, "Do you hear that too?" Before I could answer, one of the beings raised its hand. The air trembled. Thin arcs of light scanned our bodies from head to toe, leaving behind trails that glowed and vanished. The high priest fell to his knees, chanting words I didn't recognize. The aliens didn't look at him. They looked only at us. The leader stepped closer. His hand, or what looked like a hand, reached out and touched Daniel's shoulder. The moment he did, every torch in the temple went out. Darkness swallowed us. Only the faint blue light from the ship remained, rippling like water over metal. And in that darkness, I felt something press against my mind. Images pouring in too fast to understand. Skies burning, oceans drying, cities crumbling, stars moving backward. Then the same phrase again, louder this time. You were not chosen, yet you are here. Daniel screamed. The sound echoed off the metal walls and disappeared into the void. I tried to reach him, but the ground vanished beneath my feet. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside again, on the hot sand, with the temple behind me. The priests were bowing to the ship, and from its open doorway, light spilled upward into the sky like a signal. Daniel was beside me, shaken, his face pale. They spoke to me, he said. They showed me something. The future. Or maybe the end. I wanted to ask what he saw, but before I could, the ship's light flared again, brighter than the sun. And the last thing I heard before everything went white was the same mechanical hum, now inside my own head. And I realized this wasn't a dream or a vision. We were witnesses to the day the gods descended, and they were not divine. When the light faded, I wasn't sure if I was awake or still trapped inside whatever the ship had done to us. Everything around me shimmered. Sand, air, sound. The temple no longer looked ancient. It felt alive with machines. Lines of blue light pulsed through the stone like veins of metal hidden beneath the surface. The priests were gone. Only Daniel and I remained, standing before the open hull. It hummed softly, the same mechanical tone that had followed us since we entered. Then, out of the darkness, the beings appeared again. 4 this time. No footsteps, just movement, smooth and deliberate, like shadows given weight. The leader stopped in front of us. His eyes, black, polished, infinite, reflected my own terrified face. And then the pressure began. It wasn't sound. It wasn't thought. It was invasion. Images, symbols, entire memories that weren't mine poured into my mind. I saw deserts turning green, pyramids being built with beams of light, cities erased by fire. I heard their language, not with my ears, but through my nerves. And from that chaos, one clear idea formed. We were here before you. Daniel clutched his head. "They're inside me," he screamed. The beings didn't react. They simply watched, collecting data that only they understood. One turned and pointed toward the metallic structure embedded in the sand. The side of the ship opened, revealing a chamber full of silver machines, precise, symmetrical, glowing with cold light. No, what were people, or what was left of them, frozen in transparent cases, their faces calm, eyes open. I counted at least 20. Some looked modern. One wore a digital wristwatch. I took a step back, shaking. "Daniel, that can't be real," he whispered. "They've been doing this for centuries, bringing people here from different times." It sounded insane, but deep down, I knew he was right. The leader approached the cases and pressed his palm against the glass. The light inside each capsule brightened. I felt it again, that pulse in my chest. And for a second, I wasn't in the temple anymore. I saw a city of glass towers standing beside an endless ocean. Above it, the same ships hovered like silent watchers. People walked below. Humans, but not entirely. Their eyes glowed faintly, the same color as the light in the ship. And the voice said, They are what comes after you." Then everything snapped back. The air around me vibrated. Sand rose from the floor, as if caught in an invisible wind. Daniel grabbed my arm. "We need to go." But the aliens didn't move to stop us. They only turned toward the priests entering the hall again, leading more captives, men, women, children. The same high priest bowed deeply and said something that made my blood run cold. The words formed in my mind automatically. The gods demand material for the great creation. We hid behind a column, watching as the captives were lined up before the ship. Beams of light descended, scanning them. Some collapsed instantly. Others stood motionless, eyes rolled back as if their minds had been taken. Their bodies were carried into the ship. Daniel whispered, "They're making something out of us." His voice trembled. "We're next." The ground shook again. Above us, the ceiling split open, revealing a black sky filled with stars. Stars too bright, too near. The leader looked up, raised his hand, and a burst of white light shot upward like a signal. The high priest fell on his knees, chanting louder. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. It felt like the air itself was holding me in place. Then I heard the voice once more, calm, absolute. "Time will close. The experiment must continue." Daniel screamed, pulling me toward the exit. We stumbled through corridors filled with smoke and dust. Behind us, the ship roared, not with engines, but with pure energy. The walls glowed red, then blue, then white. When we finally burst into the night, the desert was shaking. From the temple roof, a column of light shot into the sky, splitting the clouds. The stars above twisted into new constellations. Daniel fell to his knees, crying. "They're changing the world," he said. "They're rewriting it." I turned back to the temple. It was collapsing in silence, swallowed by the sand. And through the smoke, I saw the last flash of blue metal disappearing into the earth. And in that moment, I understood what the priests had called them. Not gods, not saviors, but engineers of destiny. For a while, there was only silence. The temple had been buried in sand, the stars above dimmed by the rising dust. Daniel and I wandered through the ruins, half blind, deafened by what we'd seen. Every instinct told me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, glowing faint orange under a dead sky. When the dust settled, we saw movement ahead, torches flickering near what was left of the main chamber. The priests were still alive, and so were the beings. They stood near the metallic ship, working with precision, their long hands moving over panels that opened and closed like clockwork. From the distance, the whole scene looked like an operation, a factory built inside a temple. We hid among broken pillars and watched. Large metal containers were arranged in a line. Inside them, water, wires, fragments of something biological. Every few seconds, the aliens placed the body of a human into one of the containers. The liquid inside began to boil softly, glowing blue from beneath. A low hum spread across the chamber, rhythmic, almost like breathing. I felt sick. "They're experimenting," I whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "No, they're building." Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. When the lids finally opened, we saw what they had made. The first one stepped out, dripping with that same blue liquid. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. Its eyes were bright, unblinking, reflecting the metallic walls around it. It looked human until it turned its head, and the joints moved wrong, too smooth, too mechanical. The priests fell to their knees, chanting praises. The aliens didn't react. They just observed. More followed, dozens of them. Men, women, even children. All identical, all silent. They stood in perfect formation, staring at nothing. Daniel whispered, "They're creating replacements." His voice cracked. "Us, without the flaws." Suddenly, one of the new beings screamed. It wasn't a human sound. It was high, digital, fragmented. The others turned toward it, heads twitching in unison. For a moment, everything froze. Then the first hybrid lunged at a priest, tearing him apart with terrifying speed. The chamber erupted into chaos. Torches fell, fire spread, the air filled with smoke and metallic dust. The hybrids attacked blindly, priests, guards, even each other. The aliens tried to intervene, raising their hands, emitting pulses of light that froze the hybrids mid-motion. But the control didn't last. One by one, the new creatures broke free, shrieking as they turned on their creators. Daniel grabbed my arm. "We have to go." We ran toward the outer corridor, but the way was blocked by falling debris. Sparks rained from the ceiling as parts of the metallic structure tore apart. The ship itself was losing power. The lights flickered. Alarms echoed like ancient horns. Behind us, I saw one of the beings, the leader, I think, standing still in the chaos. He raised his hand toward the sky, and a beam of pure white light shot upward, cutting through the roof of the temple. The hybrids froze instantly, as if time had stopped for them alone. For a few seconds, the chamber was silent again. Then the beam collapsed, and everything fell apart. The metallic floor split open, swallowing the machines, the priests, the hybrids, everything. We barely escaped into the outer hall as the structure imploded behind us. The desert wind roared through the cracks, blowing sand and fire in all directions. Daniel collapsed outside, coughing. "They tried to control evolution," he said, voice trembling. "They wanted to make something better than us, but even they couldn't." I looked back at the ruins. The light from the ship was fading, sinking deeper under the sand. Only the faint hum remained, echoing like a dying heartbeat. We sat there, covered in dust, watching the stars shift above the horizon. For the first time, I realized how fragile the world felt, like something that could be rewritten at any moment. Daniel looked at me, eyes wide. "They called them hybrids," he whispered. "But what if? We are the result." And in that silence, I understood. We hadn't just seen the past. We'd seen the moment humanity was replaced. The night was alive with noise, screams, metal grinding against stone, the earth trembling beneath us. The temple that once stood silent now burned like a furnace. From the ruins below came that sound again, the pulse of the ship, rising and falling like a machine gasping for air. Daniel and I stumbled through the sand, barely seeing through the smoke. Behind us, the hybrids were tearing everything apart. They no longer looked human. Their skin had turned gray, cracking under the heat, glowing faintly from within. Some ran on all fours. Others moved with unnatural precision, their bodies jerking like broken machines. The priests tried to fight back with fire and spears, but it was useless. The hybrids didn't bleed. When they were struck, sparks and fragments of metal burst from their wounds. They screamed without voices, their mouths opening too wide, eyes flashing blue like dying stars. The sky above twisted, a strange glow forming where clouds should have been. Wasn't lightning, it was something else. A circle of light, faint at first, then growing, spinning slowly like a lens focusing. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Time itself began to warp. Daniel grabbed my arm. "They broke the balance. They're tearing it apart." He was right. The ship wasn't just dying. It was collapsing space around it. We reached the ridge of a sand dune, trying to escape the collapsing ruins. From there, we saw the full scale of the disaster. Half the temple had sunk into the ground. The other half floated, literally floated, several meters above the sand, held by some invisible force. Lightning flashed between the fragments, freezing for a moment, then reversing direction, striking back into the sky. It was as if reality itself was glitching. Daniel fell to his knees, breathing hard. They didn't just experiment with life, he said. They experimented with time. I looked back. The aliens were still there, small silhouettes against the inferno. They didn't flee. They stood calmly, their suits glowing faintly. One of them raised an arm toward the sky, releasing another beam of white light. It spread like a web, connecting to the floating debris, stabilizing it, at least for a moment. Then something unexpected happened. One of the hybrids broke through the light barrier and reached the alien. The creature turned too late. In a single motion, the hybrid crushed its chest, tearing through the metallic armor as if it were cloth. Blue liquid poured out, not blood, but something luminescent, like molten glass. The hybrid turned its head toward the others, shrieking, and the rest followed. Daniel screamed, "Run!" We ran down the dune, the air vibrating with heat and static. I could feel gravity changing, one moment heavy, the next almost weightless. Time flickered around us. The sand froze mid-air, then fell backward, then forward again. We reached a shattered pillar for cover. I turned to Daniel, but he wasn't moving. His eyes were fixed on something behind me. When I looked back, I saw the ship, no longer resting on the sand, but slowly lifting, half buried in a vortex of light. Its metallic hull twisted, reshaping itself like liquid metal under pressure. It was beautiful and horrifying at once. Daniel stepped forward, mesmerized. "They're leaving," he said quietly. But I knew it wasn't escape. It was destruction. The ship was pulling everything around it into the same distortion. Sand, stone, light, all drawn toward that impossible center. I grabbed his hand, shouting, but he didn't move. The air shimmered, and for a second I saw his face in two places at once. One solid, one fading. He whispered, "It's inside my head." The light grew until there was nothing else, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was still on the sand. The world was wrong. Too quiet, too still. The temple was gone, swallowed whole. No sound of wind, no stars, only a faint metallic taste in the air. Daniel lay nearby, motionless. I crawled to him, shaking his shoulder. No response. His eyes were open, reflecting the faint glow from something buried beneath the surface, the ship still humming deep underground. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. In the distance, the horizon rippled, as if time itself was trying to reset. I looked at Daniel one last time. His skin shimmered faintly, the same blue light I'd seen inside the hybrids, and I realized he hadn't died. He had become part of them. I woke to silence. No sand, no sky, just a flat white ceiling and the mechanical rhythm of air vents. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I thought I was still inside the ship, trapped in one of those glass cases. But when I touched my face, my skin was warm, human. The room was sterile. Smooth walls, faint humming, a smell of antiseptic. It looked like a hospital, but everything felt too new, too precise. I sat up slowly, head pounding. A metallic tag on my wrist read, "Observation Room 3, Subject 4. Then I saw the reflection. A window on the other side of the room, mirror dark, but faintly glowing from inside. Behind it, shadows moved. Someone was watching. I stood, unsteady. "Daniel!" My voice cracked. No answer, only a short mechanical buzz, the sound of a recording system starting. A calm, synthetic voice spoke through an unseen speaker. "You returned. How?" The question froze me. Returned? I didn't remember leaving. One moment I was in the desert, Daniel beside me, the light swallowing everything. And now, this. I tried to speak, but words wouldn't come out right. The memories didn't line up. They folded over each other. The temple, the hybrids, Daniel screaming, the ship rising, time bending, all looping like broken film. I touched the wall. It was warm, vibrating faintly, as if alive. Something in the air buzzed at the edge of hearing, like static mixed with breathing. Then, the voice again. "Do you remember what you saw?" I saw the end," I said. "I saw something being made." The voice paused. "Describe it." I swallowed hard. "They weren't gods. They were engineers. They created us. Or what comes after us." The words came out automatically, like they'd been rehearsed. Maybe they had. The reflection in the window shifted. For a moment I saw a face. Not human. Not alien either. Something between. Symmetrical. Featureless. With faint blue light pulsing beneath translucent skin. It vanished as soon as I blinked. I stumbled back. "Who are you?" No answer. Only the soft hum of the ventilation. Then the lights flickered. The room dissolved. Not physically, but like an image melting in water. Through the haze I saw something else. A corridor. Metallic. Curving. Filled with light. People in black uniforms walking with tablets. The same insignia on their sleeves. Foreign memory. A surge of panic hit me. I remembered the name. Somewhere. Somehow. I'd heard it before. They find people who see too much. They collect stories like mine. And then, they erase them. A door hissed open. 2 men in black entered, their faces hidden behind tinted visors. One carried a recorder, the other, a syringe. "Please remain calm," one of them said. "We just need to confirm the sequence." I backed against the wall. "Where's Daniel?" They didn't answer. Instead, the first one placed the recorder on the table, pressed play. From the speaker came my voice. "I saw the ship. They made hybrids. Daniel is gone. The light took him." It was the same sentence I had just spoken minutes ago, word for word, tone for tone. I realized then that this wasn't the first time I had told them, maybe not even the 10th. The second man prepared the syringe. "Wait, please. I just want to remember what happened." The first replied quietly. "That's exactly what we can't allow." I tried to fight, but my body felt heavy, like gravity had tripled. The world narrowed to a tunnel of white light. Through the fog, I saw movement behind the glass again. Not the agents, but something else. A tall figure with smooth gray skin and black eyes, watching me with perfect stillness. It raised one hand, palm outward. For a second, I thought I heard its voice, not in my ears, but inside my head. "We will meet again." Then everything went dark. When I woke again, I was sitting in a small waiting room. A nurse smiled politely, handing me a folder. "Thank you for participating in the MRI trial," she said. "You may experience mild disorientation. It will pass." I nodded weakly, stepping into the sunlight. The world looked normal. Cars, noise, people. Too normal. But when I caught my reflection in the glass door, I froze. For a split second, my eyes weren't brown. They shimmered faint blue, just like his. And deep down, I knew I never really came back. They brought me into a narrow white room. No windows, no clocks. Just a table, a recorder, and 2 men in black uniforms with the same symbol on their sleeves. Foreign memory. Their faces were calm, unreadable, as if I was another routine file. I sat down. The older one pressed a button on the recorder. A small red light blinked. He asked me to tell the story again. It was the third time. Maybe more. I could feel it. My words came out tired, mechanical, as if someone else was speaking through me. I told them about the experiment, about Daniel, about the temple buried in sand, and the metallic ship glowing under the sun. I said the priests were real, that they worshipped the beings who had come from the sky. I said the aliens were not gods. They were builders, scientists, engineers. They wanted to create something beyond life and death. The younger man took notes without looking up. The older one listened, arms crossed. He interrupted only once, asking if I understood what I had witnessed. I said, "They made hybrids, half human, half machine. They lost control." He didn't react. He simply asked, "And the other subject?" I told him Daniel was gone, that he didn't die. He changed. His eyes had turned blue. His voice echoed like it came from two mouths at once. The man nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already knew. Then I realized they weren't trying to understand what happened. They already did. They just wanted to record it, to store it. The older one leaned closer. His tone stayed calm, professional. He said, "You will not remember this conversation. It is for preservation, not disclosure." His words felt rehearsed, words he had spoken many times before. I asked him what they would do with me. He said, "You'll be released. You'll live a normal life. You'll remember nothing." I laughed, or tried to. It came out more like a breath. "What's the point of remembering if you're going to erase it?" I asked. He replied, "To keep the world intact." The younger agent walked behind me. I didn't see the syringe, but I heard the soft click of the cap. My vision started to blur around the edges. The air felt heavier, colder. The older man's voice was the last thing I heard clearly. "Case 23, he said. "Temporal contact confirmed. Containment approved." I wanted to speak, but my mouth wouldn't move. For a moment, I saw the reflection in the metal table. My own face, eyes wide, and behind me, a shape standing in the corner. Tall, thin, with gray skin and eyes like mirrors, watching silently. The agent didn't notice it. Or maybe he did. He placed a hand on my shoulder and said quietly, "Rest now." The world folded inward. Light became sound. Sound became silence. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting in a different room. Small, clean, with sunlight pouring through a window. A nurse smiled, handing me some papers. "Thank you for taking part in the MRI trial," she said softly. "You may leave when ready." I nodded, confused. My head felt hollow, like a book with its pages torn out. Outside, everything looked normal. Cars, noise, people rushing by. But something was missing. A name, a face, a reason. As I reached for the door, I saw my reflection in the glass. For a fraction of a second, my eyes flickered. Blue, faint but unmistakable. And behind me, in the reflection, a shadow moved. Tall. Still. Familiar. Case 23. The man who witnessed the gods of Egypt. Status. Archived. Memory. Clearance. Confirmed. Incident. Concealed.